For the past few weeks now, I have been using this thing basically nonstop. There is what feels like an infinite amount of customizability you can do with this. Endless hours you can spend tinkering and setting up your front end and configuring emulators and whatnot. And one thing that I've been doing a lot of is testing Steam games. I absolutely love my Steam Deck. It is right here on the desk next to me all the time. But there is something very special about being able to play a lightweight indie game on the Thor, which you can actually carry around in your pocket and truly take it on the go. So today I'm going to share 20 Steam games from my library that run great on the Thor in my tests, and I've actually had a great experience playing them on the Thor. In my last video, I went over the circumstances in which a Thor might be a good portable alternative to the Steam Deck for some people. And after testing out a bunch of these games, I am more convinced than ever that this is possible for the crowd that is mostly playing through a retro backlog, but wants to throw some lightweight Steam games into the mix. Now, that's not to say that Steam gaming on Android is without its flaws, because it absolutely is not. There are a lot of software quirks with it right now, and it is far away from something like SteamOS, like the SteamOS console-like experience. You're not going to get that. But the fact that I was able to get 20 games tested, working, and have an actual enjoyable experience. Most of these games are overwhelmingly positive on Steam as well. I personally have been reaching for the Thor as my default option the past few weeks, because if a game runs on the Thor, I would much rather play it on this, even with the setbacks, because it's just a cool experience. For these games I'm showcasing here, I've used one of two apps, either Game Native or Game Hub, to run them. Originally, I would use Game Native as kind of the default pick, where if I was going to install a Steam game and test it out, I would use Game Native first, and then if it didn't work, I would try Game Hub or one of the other emulators. Game Native was just kind of the best compatibility-wise for me, but I'm also seeing that kind of change already just in the few weeks that I've had it, where Game Native has been crashing a bit more, Game Hub has been more reliable and more stable, and that just speaks to the state of PC gaming on Android today. So I think your best bet is to just install all of the major emulators like Game Hub Lite, WinLater, Game Native, and just kind of cycle through them and see which one works best for the games that you're trying to play. And please just keep in mind that you will run into bugs and frustrations while you're using this software. I specifically have had a lot of trouble with Steam saves, where some games will work just fine, other games won't sync at all. Sometimes they just won't save and you'll lose some progress. There's just some bugs. I have noticed it getting better, where already just some games that didn't work last week will work today. So again, try them all out, constantly be checking them and trying them out. This is definitely a space for tinkerers and not, having the software ready to go for you at all times. The last disclaimer here is that I am testing all of these games on a Thor Max model. I unfortunately don't have any of the other models to test with. But I imagine that most of these should still run fine on the Pro model, possibly even the base model. So just bear that in mind. I am running this on a Max model, but your mileage may vary. If you have one of the other models and you have some extra time on your hands and you want to test out some of these games, I would love it if you could throw in the comments your results with some of these and any of the games that you can test, just to have some more data points for us. And then also all the timestamps are going to be in the description, so feel free to skip around, look at any games you want to look at. I'm just glad you're here in the first place. And with that, let's get into it. The first game on the list is Ori and the Blind Forest. This is a beautiful game, and it looks even more incredible on the Thor's AMOLED display. It's a platformer Metroidvania with a very unique art style and gameplay. It's a touching story that may or may not have made me tear up in the first 10 minutes. And it's one of those games that I think fits the Thor perfectly, in that it's very easy to pick up and play for a few minutes at a time. If you're familiar with Metroidvanias, then you know the drill. You start out with a limited set of abilities in a large non-linear map, and you unlock additional abilities as you progress through the game, as well as unlock more paths that were previously inaccessible. There are a few other Metroidvanias on this list that are also top tier games, but this one is definitely one of the more unique ones thanks to its art style and story. Next, we have Return of the Obra Dinn. This is a masterpiece of a game, super cool, like pencil-drawn art style, and if you love puzzle-style games, then this is an easy recommend. You are essentially solving the mystery of the fates of everyone aboard a ship called the Obra Dinn. You use a device which gives you the ability to view the final moments of a crew member's life to try to put together all the pieces of what happened aboard the ship. And this is all happening through the individual perspectives of these 40-something people. It's definitely one that requires you to put on your thinking cap, so come prepared. But it fully draws you into the experience and it's very hard to put down. Now we move on to one that I don't think anyone is a stranger to at this point. It's the internet's favorite roguelike, Megabonk. Powered by memes, super fun, super addicting, and also a bit overwhelming. This is a game that I'll hop into for a quick session, but I also know that I'll never play it enough to actually make progress with the achievements and unlocks, and there's a whole rabbit hole you can go down to find the current best meta and try to beat records and everything, but I just enjoy a quick casual game with zero commitment, which makes it a great one to play on the Thor. Thronefall is a 2000s era worthy mashup of the roguelike and tower defense genres, and it is as cool as it sounds. I'm a sucker for both of these genres, so this is one that I put a decent amount of time into on my Steam Deck, and the experience is every bit as good on the Thor. You have the traditional tower defense aspect of the game where you can build towers and improvements across your land to protect against the hordes of enemies, but you also lead the charge yourself as the boots on the ground and take part in the action. There's enough levels to keep you busy for a while, and on top of that, there are plenty of optional run modifiers you can toggle to increase the challenge as well as the reward and open up a whole bunch more playtime. Ball X Pit is another mashup of genres that combines roguelike elements with Brick Breaker. Also add in some city building into the mix and you are almost there. This sounds like a concept that should not work, but it absolutely does. It's fun, it's challenging, it has a cool art style, and it's great casual fun for getting a quick session in. Celeste is one that I've talked about before, and I will continue talking about it whenever I can, since it is just such a great game. Whether you are a fan of the platformer genre or not, this is a must-play game in my opinion. It takes you through the physically and emotionally tolling journey of Madeline as she scales up Mount Celeste, which is a not-so-veiled interpretation of her anxiety and fears. Mental health is a constant theme throughout this game, and I absolutely love how each part of Madeline's internal struggles are expressed through the gameplay and level design. This one has literally had me saying wow out loud on multiple occasions because of how beautiful it is. I'm not sure how they pulled it off, but every time you reach a new area in this game, it somehow feels like a completely different game, in a very good way. It gives you so many different experiences, and as you go through the story and all the unique challenges, you start to appreciate just how much work and care was actually put into this game. Plus, it's an extremely easy one to play just 5 minutes at a time whenever you have a break in the day. Hollow Knight Silksong. You already know about this one, most likely. I loved the first Hollow Knight, not initially, I actually hated it at first, but I grew to love it, and Silksong has been a very fun experience as well so far. It follows the story of Hornet, who is a character from the first game that you have a few encounters with. The gameplay is brutal, it's precise, and it makes you feel like you are on top of the world when you finally beat the boss you have died a million times to. This is one I've actually been very reluctant to get far into just because I've seen so many videos on how insanely hard and frustrating this game gets, and although I do love a good skill-based game that presents a worthy challenge, I don't know if I'm ready to put myself through that fully. But I am slowly playing through it, and it's starting to remind me of why I loved Hollow Knight in the first place, and it runs extremely well on the Thor. Now let's talk about Domekeeper. This is one that I picked up a little while back. I did watch a lot of videos on it, and I love the concept and gameplay so much that I bought it, only to have it relegated to the graveyard that is my Steam library. So no, I haven't played through much of it at all, but I tested it, spun it up, and it does run really well on the Thor. This game falls roughly in the same category as Terraria, so if you do like that kind of digging, crafting, farming, exploring game, then you should definitely check this out, and I will definitely be getting a lot more game time in for this game on the Thor now. The only thing to call out here is multiplayer does not seem to work with the configuration I'm using. Next up, Hades 2. I was actually shocked at how well this game runs and looks on the Thor. It must be just an insanely optimized game considering it's a pretty new title, so shout out to the developers at Supergiant Games for that. The premise of the game is that you play as Melanoi, and she is fighting her way down to the underworld to defeat the Titan Kronos. With each level you descend, there are more enemies and more challenges as you inch closer to the bottom. This is, of course, the sequel to the super popular roguelike Hades, which you can also add to this list since it runs perfect as well. This is one that checks all the boxes with the cool storyline, artwork, mechanics, progression system, super satisfying combat system, and just an overall great game. Brotato is a vampire survivor-like game that just has a very weird vibe to it in a good way. It's a top-down shooter roguelite where you play as a potato or some mutation variant of one. You have multiple weapons, upgrades, items, and you use it all to fight off hordes of aliens. Also, for some reason, this game looks extremely smooth on this screen, and I love it. For me, this style of game is like the epitome of casual gaming, since you really can play in just very short bursts. The game will save your progress between runs, so you can really stop at any time and pick it back up later to start right up at the same run you were on. This one is a whole lot of fun, and you have near infinite replayability. Now let's move on to Dredge. This is, I think, actually a pretty unique game that gives off a very cozy vibe, despite it also having some slight horror elements to it. It starts you off in an unfamiliar town after you experienced a shipwreck, and you're given a fishing boat to be able to earn your ticket out. And that's pretty much all you know about it as you start the game. There's something off about this place though, and you're highly discouraged from staying out once the sun has gone down. You'll see things that make you question your sanity, you'll unlock some satisfying upgrades to your boat, and uncover the mystery of this place that you've found yourself in. It runs like a dream on the Thor, and it feels like the perfect casual game to always have on hand. Risk of Rain 2. If you have not played this one before, but you have played Megabonk, then you'll catch right away that this game was actually one of the main influences on Megabonk alongside Vampire Survivors. This is a fast-paced roguelike that somehow makes you feel more in control than most other games in this genre. It's probably due to the fact that you actually have to manually fire and aim your various weapons and power-ups versus something like Megabonk, Vampire Survivors, Brotato, and all the other roguelites where your weapons automatically fire for you. There's a pretty wide variety of characters, enemies, power-ups, and it's just a top-loved game for a reason. It is a ton of fun to blast through enemies and progress through the different worlds. Easy Delivery Co. is a really fun one. I've actually put probably 4 or 5 hours in it on my Thor so far. This is kind of one of the main ones I'm playing right now. And in this game, you play as a delivery driver that is a cat for some reason. Everyone else is an animal, and it just makes it feel like an alternate Animal Crossing universe. You pick up jobs, try not to freeze in the cold, and unlock additional areas and roads as you get more experience and money. I love a good driving game, and this definitely is one of the more cozy games that I've played. It also has this really cool CRT effect over the whole game that just adds to the coziness and nostalgia factor. It gives you a good amount of freedom where you can complete the various quests it gives you at your own pace, and maybe you just take on a few deliveries in between to rack up cash, so you can top up your supply of coffee and energy drinks. It feels like it takes the best parts of one of those simulator games, but gives it an interesting storyline, very cool artwork, and a ton of replayability if you just enjoy making deliveries on icy roads. Dead Cells is another Metroidvania that has its own unique twist on the genre. Like most of the games on this list, the art style really does set it apart. It has this super slick pixel art style with fast combat, and it just feels really great to play. It does lean more heavily into the roguelite elements, so every run is very different. The structure of the castle that you're traversing through actually changes on each run. You are constantly unlocking new weapons, abilities, and upgrades, but they're all temporary, and part of the fun is figuring out which playstyle clicks with you the most. It can definitely be punishing at times, but the movement and combat, it's all very satisfying. This is a really easy one to recommend, and if you don't have it on Steam or you don't want to run it through PC emulation, there's also a native Android port for the game that you can get directly from the Play Store. Bendy and the Ink Machine. This is one, I think I saw it in another video and it was on a crazy sale. It was like $2, so I picked it up without thinking much. But I really enjoyed this one. I'm not a fan of horror games, and I wouldn't say that's what this is, really, but it's somewhere between very creepy and horror game. Or rather, it's different than the traditional horror games that come to mind, where they are typically brutal, gory, a lot of jump scares, and this game is definitely not that vibe. It takes the horror element and kind of puts a playful twist on it, where I wasn't scared to play through, but it felt hesitant. which I think is a great way to describe how this game plays. It immediately stands out just because of the old-timey cartoon art style in the game. You play as an animator who gets called back to the old animation studio, but you realize things there have gone very wrong. It's a mix of puzzles, exploration, and horror in a way that makes it feel approachable, even if you're not normally into horror games. Like, I'm not into horror games, but I still did have an enjoyable experience with this. It's more about the atmosphere and the uncomfortable, creepy feeling that something is always just a little bit off. It has a lot of personality and it is fun to play. Also, if you want to like 10x the creepy factor of the game, you can wear headphones. And just to call it out, this is one of the few games that my save files from the Steam Deck did not transfer over in the cloud async, so that's something to just be aware of. But if you're playing it fresh on the Thor, then you shouldn't have an issue. This one also tends to look much better if you set the graphics preset to low and keep all of the other options like the depth blur and the motion blur to on. Firewatch is a very different kind of game compared to a lot of the others on this list because it's not really about reflexes or combat or grinding out upgrades. It's more about vibes and story. In it, you play as a guy who takes a job as a fire lookout in the wilderness, and most of the game is spent exploring the forest, uncovering mysteries, and talking over the radio with Delilah, who is basically your only real connection to the outside world. It feels and plays more like a movie and takes you on a sort of roller coaster of emotions as you discover more secrets about the area that you're in. It has a really nice, cozy art style, and the whole vibe of the game is just very immersive. So this is a really good one to just throw on and get lost in for a while if you want something slower paced, but still intriguing and will keep you wanting more. Now we come to Dave the Diver. This one, to me, is similar to Bollock's Pit in that this is a game that really should not work as well as it does, but it somehow pretty much nails everything it tries to do. On the surface, it looks like a very chill diving and fishing game, and this is honestly what I thought it was when I bought it, so the rest came as a big surprise to me. It is about diving and fishing, but then it also turns into a restaurant management sim. It's a light adventure game. There's a storyline that for me was completely unexpected, and somehow it still even is more than that. During the day, you're diving for fish, exploring deeper and deeper areas, you're upgrading your gear, finding just all kinds of strange stuff underwater, and then at night you're helping run a sushi restaurant using what you caught during the day. It sounds really ridiculous when you explain it out loud, but once you start playing it, it just makes sense. It's one of those games where you just have to try it to really see what people are talking about. Cult of the Lamb is once again another one of those games that gets a lot of mileage out of combining very different ideas. I guess something happened in the last few years where people just started loving these kind of game mashups because all of these are overwhelmingly positive on Steam. So on one side, you've got a roguelite action game where you're fighting through dungeons, collecting resources, and taking down enemies. And on the other side, you're basically running your own little cult and trying to keep all of your followers happy and loyal so that they don't lose their minds in revolt. The art style reminds me of something out of the early Cartoon Network days, so it's weirdly nostalgic. It also has that kind of game loop that is really hard to put down because every run gives you something useful to bring back home, and then when you're back at your cult you have like a dozen other things that you could be doing, and it ends up being weirdly cozy in a very messed up sort of way. And I guess putting all that together is kind of what makes it such a fun game to keep coming back to. This is another one where I did have issues with Steam saves, so on my Steam Deck I got pretty far into it, but on the Thor, as you can see here when I'm showcasing it, I'm just kind of starting out at the very beginning of the game. Also, when I started it up, it was, I think, in Chinese, so I had to stumble through the settings until I could find the language setting. So yeah, hopefully this one runs well for you because it's definitely worth it. Hey, so I had to interject here because as I was editing this, I ended up testing Cult of the Lamb again using Game Native, and this time it did run. The save states are syncing correctly from my existing game on the Steam Deck, but the game is not as playable as it seemed initially, at least through Game Native. So I have it running with the save states, but I'm getting very low frame rates, around 20. It looks like it's hovering around 20 with some stuttering. I'll show some gameplay here. And I realized while playing this that while I'm in the dungeon, going through the levels and fighting and everything, the action part of the game, it actually runs decent. I think it's definitely playable in those sections. But when you are back at the cult and you're doing your rituals and you're doing your sermons at the temple or whatever, that is where for me the frame rate gets to where it's kind of below what I'm comfortable with. That said, you might be fine with it since it's not combat based where the FPS is very low. So yeah, again, go ahead and give it a shot, see if it works for you. So just wanted to throw that out there in case it gets better by the time you watch this. Definitely try it out with Game Native, Game Hub. Try out all of them if you want to play this game, and hopefully it runs a little better for you. Little Nightmares is a popular one that I've heard a lot about since it came out a little while back, but it is one of the more visually interesting games I've played in a long time. It's basically a creepy puzzle platformer where you play as this tiny character and you make your way through these very large, horrifying environments, and they just kind of constantly remind you of how small you are. There's not much dialogue going on, so the game leans heavily on the art direction, the sound design, and just overall atmosphere to make everything feel very tense. If you like games that are kind of more creepy and just kind of strange and everything feels kind of wrong as you're playing it, then you're definitely gonna like this one. This one was actually a recent addition to my library. I literally just picked it up like a few days ago, and it's on sale currently, I believe, still, so I haven't played through a whole lot of it yet, but I'm really enjoying the puzzle aspect and overall creepiness of it so far. Here we have a heavy hitter, Fallout New Vegas. This is one of those games that you definitely have heard of by now. It's an older one, so it's had time to go around the block, but it's still very much worth playing on the Thor. If you've played any of the other Fallouts like Fallout 3 or 4, which are also very popular titles, and they also run on the Thor, so you should definitely add those to this list, I guess. But it gives you a ridiculous amount of freedom in how you want to play, who you want to side with, what kind of character you want to be, and in this case, you are in the post-apocalyptic desert wasteland. You can lean into the main story, you can wander off in a random direction and get sidetracked for hours, or you can spend your time getting wrapped up in politics and weird side quests that honestly sometimes end up being better than the main plot. Like I said, it's a little older at this point, but it does not feel dated, and the fact that it's older just means that it runs great on the Thor. This is the kind of game you can easily waste hours and hours in. And again, Fallout 3, Fallout 4, those aren't on the list, but they're great to run on the Thor. All those games that are, AAA games from like 10 years ago, like these and Skyrim, those are ones that are often showcased for the Thor. I didn't put them on the list because those are, pretty much every list I've ever seen has things like Fallout 4 and Skyrim on it. But those are very much playable. Fallout 4 also has this very cool Pip-Boy companion mod that I've seen floating around. I haven't tried it myself, but again, the Thor is kind of the actual perfect device for that. Blasphemous is another Metroidvania for our list. It has a very dark and gothic vibe. The world you're playing through is fairly disturbing, but the art style and visuals make it very hard to look away from. It's just such a cool looking game. You play as the penitent one, making your way through this kind of religious nightmare world with some pretty grotesque enemies that you battle along the way. The boss designs are some of the best I've seen, and just overall this game is more punishing than the other Metroidvanias that we've talked about. It has Souls-like combat where you just need to accept it's going to take you 100 more respawns before you'll even figure out what's going on. And this is one where I also couldn't get Steam saves working, so again, here I am at the beginning of the game. But honestly, I might just forget all the progress that I have on my Steam Deck and just exclusively play it on the Thor. Domekeeper is one of those games that just kind of came completely out of left field, grabbed me, caught my attention, and kept me addicted for a few weeks until I snapped out of it and realized I could not just spend all my time playing this one game. I guess it's technically a tower defense game at its core, but maybe not a traditional tower defense game. You're basically protecting a dome from waves of alien attacks, and in between each wave, you are digging underneath the dome for resources, and then you're going to use those resources for upgrades, and like upgrading your dome, upgrading your weapons, upgrading your character so you can move faster, you can dig faster, you can dig harder material. There's just a ton of stuff that goes into it. It's extremely addicting. I'm a sucker for tower defense games though, so this one definitely had its hooks in me for a little while. The last time I played this, there was also some stuttering that can happen during specific parts of the game when there's like a lot of resources on screen, but it was kind of in and out for me. I'm not sure if everyone would experience it on the Thor, so just something to watch out for. But other than that, great game, and it runs really well. So those are 20 Steam games that you really should be playing on your Thor. I think I actually mentioned a bit more than 20, but we'll just consider those as bonuses. I think all but a few of those games are also overwhelmingly positive on Steam, so to think that you can have your entire retro backlog plus a small part of the best of Steam games, I mean, that just speaks to how awesome this thing actually is. If you have a Thor already, definitely try these out. Let me know how you liked them in the comments, or if you had any issues running them. And if you're still waiting for your Thor to come, Godspeed. If you liked the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more handheld content like this. Thanks for watching.